And welcome to the Down in Front podcast. How's it going, guys?
Yeah.
Woo! We are here. We are back. We are super excited. We're coming to you late, but we really wanted to talk about this episode, and not only this episode, but this entire sort of mid-season recap of Game of Thrones Season 7. We're going to go through, and we're going to be talking about, we gave you the first one, and now we're going to do all the other ones for right now. So we have Stormborn, as well as Queen's Justice and Spoils of War, which is the most recent one. An episode that dropped tonight at 9 p.m. So I'm excited. I'm Warren. I will be your host this evening. I am joined by two of my lovely best friends, the talented mouth of the South. Brylan, how's it going, man?
How's it going?
It's going well. Good to see your face as always.
Yeah, I am excited to talk about the Game of Thrones.
Oh my god, I'm super pumped, and I know we were actually chatting about this from before, so I'm really excited for people to get some of your thoughts on how you feel about it. Because I think it's going to be super beneficial. So I'm excited.
Yeah. My initial thought is, damn.
True. That's fair. On the other end, we have Mr. East Berlin himself, the Shredder, Mike Blewett. How's it going, Mike?
Howdy ho. I guess, do I have to make it the other end of the spectrum?
No.
I'd be lying, but I feel like we should take a confrontational approach to this, get more clicks on our podcast.
That's
I think this review starts and ends with seeing that after 7 seasons of there's dragons. We haven't seen dragons. Just see them steamroll a bunch of troops. Oh my god,
yes.
It was incredible.
And if everybody's tuning in, of course you've seen this Game of Thrones episode. But if you haven't, just like any episode that we do have here at the Game of Thrones podcast, is that we do go into full spoilers of each and every one of these episodes. So if you haven't quite seen any of the episodes of Game of Thrones Season 7 at this point, I would probably say stop, because what are you, under a rock? Did you jump off a boat and just been floating away? Who knows? But we want to make sure that you have a chance to really preserve the magic. So I would say hit pause, and then what we're going to do is really get into this in detail version of Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 4. And all the other episodes. So I'm pumped. I'm excited. Guys, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we just saw. Let's talk about what we've been seeing for the last couple weeks. And I think it's best if we just start with maybe kind of highlighting some of these characters and just seeing where they are, what's been happening, until we start getting to the really meat of the conversation of what happened tonight. So let's talk about Jon.
Jon's been a king of the Northing. The way he should. I think he's been a really good leader so far, and I think one of the most telling scenes that showed Jon's leadership style was when he had the 2 children descendants of those 2 houses that betrayed him, the Karstarks and the Umbers, come up and swear their fealty to him. And he, just said, hey, if you betray us, we're coming after you. And that's just the bottom line. And a lot of people are look at Jon, they're oh, he's a softie. He's talking about, making deals and headed south, and he's going to get, kind of give up on us because he's physically not here, being king of the North. But I think it's really telling that he's going to do what he feels is right for his people. Even if that means saying no to Daenerys Targaryen and not bending the knee to her, because the North has been through a lot of shit. Being led by the Boltons, killing Ned Stark, the Red Wedding. There's been a lot of pain and agony for the North so far, and so they're kind of at that point where it's like enough's enough, and we need to watch after ourselves right now.
Yeah.
But we also know there's a bigger threat that even his own people are kind of like still not sure of it. But I mean, as we've seen, Jon's definitely sure, and he's going to do what he can to protect his people from the White Walkers coming.
Yeah. Mike?
I mean, I think Jon Snow's storyline also gave us probably one of the better fourth wall break moments of the show. When Tyrion came down and said, "Oh, I'm here to brood, but you've already done such a better job of it." Like I don't like that wasn't even a wink what's it called? A wink and a nod to the audience. That was just like, yeah, you guys make fun of Jon Snow for brooding all the time, so we're just going to work that into our show.
Has there been a picture of Jon Snow sitting with Sad Keanu?
No, that would be good though. One thing I'd also say is that I thought that they should have cut to Jon Snow in the latest episode after the cave scene with just like a paintbrush behind his back. like they made a big deal of like, oh, they got these super accurate paintings. Like he was just down there before everyone else, and decided
it's real.
Yeah, come help us, please.
He just had a blue. You see the paintbrush with a little blue paint on it, just for the eyes of the White Walkers on there. It's like, wait, how'd you get that blue? Where'd you get that blue from?
That is terrifyingly accurate. I thought. I mean, Jon so far hasn't been super action orientated, but I think that he is bringing more of the politic. And we'll kind of get into this maybe a little bit, but like he's representing the politic side that also is integral to making Game of Thrones feel like Game of Thrones and not just another fantasy war epic.
Yeah.
I would like to say on that part of it that he really didn't get a chance to shine with his negotiation tactics. Like basically he showed up, Daenerys had a whole plan, and then the plan fell apart, and then Jon could have literally showed up, pled the fifth for about a week and a half, and then she'd be like, hey, fun fact, can I have your men? Like he never really had any rousing speech or anything for that.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was cool. Like, I just like seeing. Like I said before, I am going through an entire rewatch of the entire Game of Thrones series again. So it's really impactful and it's really powerful that I see this progression. I see all these characters that we're going to talk about tonight. And Jon I'm at the episode where he just killed his first person, which was Corn Halfhound of the Night's Watch, and that was he didn't know what happened, and even Ygritte saw the fact that it was kind of crazy, and it's like, wow, or that's actually, she knew that it's okay, I understand that. So seeing him in this episode, and I think I gotta echo what both of you guys are saying here, seeing him in this episode and just seeing him this season now, he hasn't been in a battle, he hasn't been in a fight, but now we're starting to realize why people chose to follow him, and I think they're using those words more and more, is that we are now seeing that he knows what he's doing, and now he's learning more of the, hey, you don't have to be in a war to be a great leader, and I think he's learning that and learning how to be against these people, really two people here who have the legit claim to the throne. But he also says that, hey, there's a bigger world, there's a bigger war that we need to do. And I like that because of this episode that we talked about before. He leads Daenerys into the cave. And I just love the fact that we see it in different sections of, the first children, and then we see the first man, and then we see them together kind of uniting against the White Walkers in the long winter. So I do like that, and I like the fact that he's grown up, and I think a lot of his words aren't necessarily wasted anymore as they have been. He knows a bit what he's talking about. Even when we're talking about one of the previous episodes of Daenerys and Tyrion were both looking at him kind of weird of because he's hiding the fact that he died and kind of came back. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's cool to see him. Go ahead, Mike.
But I was going to say real quick, it kind of sets up this trichotomy, if you will, coining it down in front podcast, trademarked, of where you have what type of ruler will Daenerys be? You have Jon Snow, who is basically as democratically as you can get, elected King of the North, with the F in there. And then on the other hand, you have Cersei, who was not democratically elected, probably doesn't have that much legitimacy, and kind of reigns through pure intimidation. She literally has a mountain that goes around enforcing her rule. And then right in the middle, you have Daenerys, who has the ability to have something bigger than the mountain, her dragons, enforce her rule. But she also has the humanistic side, where she was elected by the slaves that she freed. And you kind of have all three of them butting heads and juxtaposing their styles of rule together, and we'll see what wins out in the end.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see, like you mentioned, like what part of Daenerys is actually going to come out of all of this, if she ends up on the Iron Throne. And it was interesting, like I was thinking before we started tonight, like, over 7 seasons, I mean, everybody's saying Daenerys is a great leader, but have we really seen Daenerys be a great leader yet? And I was thinking to myself that a lot of the stuff that, I mean, people want to praise her for, I mean, it's done by the force of her dragons or the Unsullied. I mean, it's been by might and not by right. And but then with Sandy, like, wow, she brought up a really cool point that in this episode about, like, hey, she didn't force herself to become queen. She didn't tell us, like, now y'all are my subjects or anything. We chose to stay with her. And that's the power of Daenerys that a lot of people kind of overlook, is that, like, hey, all those people that are fighting for her, those dragons that she kept caged for a little bit too, I mean, they're still with her every step of the way, even though you may not see her do something direct or have any, like, fighting ability herself. She has a presence about her that makes people want to go and do things.
I'd even like the comparison from there of, it's very funny that, Jon Snow goes to Dragonstone and talks about, the Night King and the long night, and they don't believe him. And he said that's fair. But then on the opposite end, Jon doesn't believe that she's changed as a Targaryen, as a person. And so you have these two sort of competing things of neither party believes each other, because it's impossible. And I like how Jon in particular mentions that of, this is impossible. You made impossible happen. So I appreciated that language of, like, what's coming back from what they were talking about to create those two comparisons.
And Brown, one thing to respond to that, I think that Daenerys' best qualification as a ruler is that she doesn't lead herself.
She's very much delegator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Where everyone else kind of seems to, like, Jon, everyone forces him to make decisions. Cersei forces those decisions, and then Daenerys kind of surrounds herself accidentally by the smartest people in Westeros. Yeah, she's a master delegator. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Daenerys a little bit. Let's talk about what's happened on Dragonstone, because where we left off, everybody, we only just landed on Dragonstone, and then the words that was echoed out saying, "Oh, shall we begin?" And so we see that in Dragonstone, a lot has happened already, and I'm glad that they're using this sort of environment because it looks fucking gorgeous. You start with having, like, Lady Olenna and Theon and the Sand Snakes. They all, like, meeting up, and then we're going to be using this plan to say that this is, Tyrion's plan. Tyrion's plan is going to be, hey, what we're going to do is use the Dorne forces, use the High Garden forces. We're going to do as much as we necessarily can. We're going to send Grey Worm and all the Unsullied to take Castle Rock, whereas we're going to use the Dorne forces and the Tyrell army to go ahead and just siege the entire, take all the food and basically trap everybody in King's Landing. while we then necessarily use the rest of the... Well, I don't know, actually, was the Dothraki army being used in that point, or no?
I don't think so. I mean,
Okay.
it seemed like she was going to hold him for a wild card.
Fair.
That was her vanguard. Like that was
right.
when she was going to win. That was what was going to happen.
Okay, so that was a trump card. Got it. So,
although I think most of everyone knew that the Dothraki were there, though, so it wasn't like a complete surprise attack type thing. I don't think she just didn't want to use them because they're not specialists. Like the Unsullied, you could do a lot of things with. They're basically like, we are going to crash and burn this. Like we saw in the past episode.
Yeah.
They just said, here's the target, just go kill everyone.
But I thought it was mentioned that like looking at the Dothraki, the Dothraki was actually more skilled than the Unsullied.
Well, the Dothraki, I mean, they're all horse people, so they make great cavalry. But the thing is, no one's seen the Dothraki fighting style in Westeros for the most part, unless there's like a couple people here and there that have visited Essos. So, has anybody seen the whole Khalasar fucking riding into battle like that? Not really. They've been in Essos, like, just raiding small towns and stuff. And to use them as a large mounted cavalry, it's an impressive force.
I mean, I'm super pumped to talk about that a little bit later, because that was just spectacular to actually watch. But, we looking at in Dragonstone, and we have a lot of key players in here. And even kind of fast forward a little bit through this most previous episodes, like, Tyrion's plan is falling through one by one, and it's all being destroyed. Yara, Theon, and the Sand Snakes were just basically destroyed. Yara's captured. Theon ran away. And so, who's the leader of the Sand Snakes? Her name is Ilaria, right?
Ilaria, yeah.
Ilaria is now captured, and she's being basically slowly tortured in King's Landing. You got Grey Worm, who took Castle Rock, but basically that none of the actual Lannisters were actually there. And now they're basically stranded because of Euron's forces just took away all their ships. So you see that plan is kind of not going to it. And lastly, you also have Lady Olenna, and she's, that entire sort of scenario that even happened there. We can talk about that in a second, but basically it kind of flipped the script of the Lannister army and the Tarleys. They all just basically ran through Highgarden and took all their money and just killed a bunch of people. But I would love to give like a few minutes and let's talk about Lady Olenna before we jump back into Dragonstone, because
best part of the season, even better than the dragons. I take that back. Very close. Very close second to the dragons.
It's fantastic.
Lady Olenna was, I think at one point, I was looking at the trending topic, like everybody was talking about her at this time, and I guess she's just the way that she was already everybody's favorite character because she was so quippy and she was like very like snark, but at the same time she knew what she was talking about. But to go out like that was the fucking best. So I was super pumped. I was like, ugh! And then Jamie couldn't do anything except just walk out. But Bradlin, talk to me about what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, they call her for the Queen of Thorns for a reason, and I mean, who else is going to say, all right, this is going to kill me, right? All right, I'm just going to drink this poison that kills me. Death has no meaning to her at all. She just doesn't give a fuck that she's going to die. It's all about, like, getting that last word, and it's just like, hey, it's a big middle finger to the Lannisters. I'm glad that I killed your kid, Joffrey, and I'm glad that y'all have no kids left over.
Oof.
Yeah, it was so cold.
And I love, like, even in this current episode, Bronn says, oh, did she give you a prick in the balls before she went out? I'm like, oh, she did, bro.
Yeah,
she did.
That and then some.
And the hidden burn there is that Jamie completely blamed Tyrion. And I don't know if she necessarily knew, but part of his realization is that he had an ally with Tyrion, and now he doesn't. And now Tyrion's hilariously helping the person that's going to try and overthrow them, which could have completely been avoided if he just said, I believe you. You didn't kill your nephew. That's all that needed to happen.
Yeah.
And he would have had the smartest man in Westeros on his side.
Well, Tyrion did kill Tywin. So
right, but that was after the whole thing. That was like literally after the whole trial. everything was all messed up and stuff, and Jaime already said, like, I don't believe you. And then, Tyrion's going to just kill everyone because everyone thinks he killed everyone to begin with.
Fair. Cool. So, R.I.P. Lady Olenna. We will miss you so. I really hope that she comes back in the flashback. But let's talk about...
I think one last thing on Lady Olenna, that she left Daenerys with a really good piece of wisdom. So regardless of whoever advises you and whoever has a great plan, sometimes going with your gut is the right move. And she told her to be a dragon. And so if she's going to be Targaryen, she's got to be full-blooded Targaryen and go out there and make things happen.
I mean, I thought it was interesting because, I had looked up this last piece on Lady Olenna. I had looked this up of, the definition of wailing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're pleading or it's like you're being helpless, but you're necessarily just saying something out there. And it may not be necessarily directed to an audience. And she's a widow. And to the fact that you have Jaime, who's there, carrying the sword, and she mentions that King Joffrey, late King Joffrey, named the sword Widow's Wail, was a very powerful moment because that's what she's doing. And then she take the poison and kind of go through the entire thing. So I thought that was a really nice setup, and I thought that was a pretty cool way to not only introduce and let us know that, hey, Valyrian Steel, and I think they keep sprinkling this around that, hey, Valyrian Steel, but you're starting to see that there's a reason for some of these names, and names mean something. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, Dragonstone.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that I really wanted to touch on besides, finally getting to see what is conceivable. I mean, they said it. They said United Fire and Ice, and that's what Game of Thrones' real name is. And so it was that was a big moment. I don't know. I feel like I said it already about Jon and Daenerys.
Cool.
The one thing I guess it's getting a little weird with, she's technically his aunt. And so we'll see how that plays out. We'll see if that plays out like Targaryens are known for.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking at it, and I got a couple of hints. I was like, they're getting kind of close in that cave with that fire.
And we remember what happened last time Jon was in a cave with a woman.
You know nothing, Johnson. Maybe he knows something now.
He does.
So we leave in Dragonstone. Let's go over to Winterfell. Mike, tell me, there's tons of stuff, especially in these last 2 episodes, that's happening with Winterfell. So let's do a rundown of that.
Yeah, big thing there. I mean, this whole season has been about meetings and either people crossing paths for the first time or crossing paths for the first time in a long time. And so at Winterfell, we got a lot of bigs with Bran coming back down below the wall, and then with Arya coming up from the south. I thought there was a couple like really key scenes, like Bran talking about proving his ability to see different things by talking about the night that Sansa was raped. That was like heavy. Also, I think they've done too good of a job of stripping Bran of his humanity, because he is completely unlikable.
Yeah.
Like he is, and he's honestly like, he's not even Joffrey level unlikable. Like you could watch Joffrey and you'd be like, what is he going to do this time that is horrible to like humanity? Whereas Bran is just kind of, I don't know, he just kind of exists. He says a bunch of like nonsense stuff and then doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even have like a good personality to boot with it. It's kind of, he's there and does stuff.
Yeah, he's just now the backup drive for Westeros history.
yeah, right. But he has about the same amount of personality as a hard drive.
He's a Lord Buzzkill of Winterfell.
Yeah, and he's not even like good at his job either. Like he should know that it was Littlefinger's knife that was the one that tried to kill him. He should know that, and he should be able to tell someone.
And maybe he does, and he's just trying to wait for the right moment. I mean, I don't know if he even has that in him now. I think we're supposed to assume that he's just meant to be and be able to see everything because he's the three-eyed raven now.
Yeah, I think it's a little. I definitely agree with you, Blue. And I'm super bummed because this was my favorite character, because of his ability and how he cared for it. And we see, a couple seasons ago of how Hodor became Hodor. Was because of Bran kind of meddling into powers he didn't know, and like that happened. So that should have like affected him. And Briley, you're gonna have to help me out with this name, but his guardian this entire time.
Mira.
Mira.
Mira Howell. The Howells. The Cranog man.
Mira Reed. And so that stripping of his humanity to become like the three-eyed raven is such a bummer because he was such a likable and lovable character that I think he has to do his duty, more so to being like his personality. And I think we'll talk about this a lot with Sansa. We'll talk about this a lot with the Starks because the three Starks that are there are going through some crazy identity crises right now.
Yeah, what's interesting of Bran is, like, when is he going to choose to share that information? And what is it? I mean, that's going to be his role is like, hey, here's something y'all need to know or you're going to lose or someone's going to die. So it's going to be I think it might be something where, I don't know if it's his humanity that's going to make that choice for him or is it going to be just, so Bran's role as the three-eyed raven, it's going to be interesting of when he'll share this information, just based on, has he been completely removed of his humanity? Is it going to be a human reason he actually shares the information he knows, like Jon's parentage? Or is it just he's going to deliver because there's a part of him that says, like, well, this is what's expected to happen?
Yeah.
It's an interesting situation.
You have a character who knows all the answers in the past, but may not necessarily know how those answers could affect the future. I think. I don't know. That's like my interpretation of it. And so I think it's this huge waiting game because we're going to see, like, the Bran and Jon Snow, like, meetup is probably going to, like, that's the only meetup that we're waiting for now, if anything. Yeah. And that's going to be big because I think they're also, I think for a plot, right? And the showrunners, like, they're waiting for the big reveal because we're all going to find out that he's going to be a Targaryen. So there's something about that reveal that's going to happen, and I think there's things that are set up in place that's not quite there yet. But I am a bit nervous of just having a character around now, if he is the three-eyed raven, who knows the answers. He should know these answers already, but I'm wondering what's the reasoning of why they're not sharing that information. And I really hope that there is a reason for it instead of just saying, hey, we're not going to share that information right now. So. Yeah,
and I mean, the character of Bran, I mean, he's still interesting to me. I don't feel bummed out by him because he can still have scenes like what he had with Littlefinger. And he just says one phrase, which is chaos is a ladder. And that kind of like makes Littlefinger go stark white.
Well, Littlefinger's on borrowed time.
First of all, Stark White was great. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I know you. That's great.
Do you know what Chaos is a ladder from?
No.
So it's when Littlefinger and Varys were still on Joffrey's small council, and afterwards, there's one meeting where Littlefinger pulls Varys aside and talks to him about how, despite who's on the throne, who's making whatever deals, who's at war, everything ends in chaos. And chaos doesn't bring you down, it doesn't take you out, it's a ladder. And it's the climb that matters more than anything, than the what's at the end of the ladder.
That was a great scene with Jon Snow climbing the wall. But that was like one of my top 5 favorite Game of Thrones scenes.
Yeah, and I mean...
Side note.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think they even used that in the trailer where Littlefinger is actually talking about chaos is a ladder while they're showing that of Jon Snow. But it's all a matter of, like, it's how you manipulate the game. that's going to make things happen. And that's kind of like Littlefinger explaining his process to Varys of how he sees things. And so Bran knows how Littlefinger works.
I just think.
And so will Littlefinger be able to get away with what he's done before?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm kind of bummed because, you know, he hasn't seen Sansa or Arya, you know, in how long, and Mira has to go say goodbye, and you're not going to give them anything anymore because you've now assumed that role. I guess I'm kind of bummed because I think we're going to talk about this next of, you know, the Maesters, right? And the reason the Maesters are there to serve, to preserve the history of the world. But they shouldn't necessarily be connected for that. And it's kind of a bummer because, you know, even Arya in this episode calls out Maester Luwing that, like, he has such a big impact on their lives. But it feels like now Bran is also being a part of that. You know, I now have to step out of my life as Bran, and then I have to be like a higher being to protect the entire world, which means that these little things here, these little engagements or these little sort of interactions aren't very important. And it's kind of a bummer. But,
yeah.
What do you do? So let's leave the Winterfell. Unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about. Because we got Arya, and then we also have Brienne.
I mean, one thing I would just mention is, like, it's good to see Winterfell is open for business again. Stark banners everywhere.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just the homecoming, the Stark family is back in Winterfell too. So you have 3 of the last 6 Starks, and then is Jon going to come back to Winterfell and be with them for just one last hurrah, whatever they do?
I feel like he should. I feel like he has to.
He might be. It just depends on if someone else leaves first. He will. He'll go back up north.
Yeah. And I just, and one thing is, like, Sansa. I love that Sansa has become, she's become the Stark people always wanted, I feel. The Stark that the North wanted Robb to be. That she's aggressive when she needs to be, that she's direct, and then she can make these tough decisions and start to plan out, like, how are they going to survive the long winter when it comes.
Yeah, I did like that. I still like her interactions and scenes just with Littlefinger because I feel like they're now, like, just looking at what's been happening, like, she's becoming more and more not only like him but just more and more wiser. And there was a great line from an episode that I was watching today of he tells her to look around, look at everybody here. We're all liars and we're all way better than you as a liar. So just think about that. To now, she's kind of hold her own and can have those conversations and be like, the only reason why you're here right now is because you helped us a little bit, but that's kind of about it, sort of thing.
Yeah. Arya it helps that she's grown 8 feet tall, too.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, Arya being an absolute badass, quote unquote, maybe the best fighter in Westeros. Could be. Maybe. Could be. It could be. You never know.
She's an assassin. She's not a, you know. I would still take Brienne if that was a real fight.
If it was like a straight up fight in a battle, yeah, Brienne. But
yeah,
Arya has to be too sneaky.
But yeah, I was gonna say Arya. I mean, Arya might be the best killer in Westeros. I still think. Oh, dude, I heard a good one that Arya uses her face changing ability, and so there's this theory that Cersei will die by the hands of her brother, quote unquote. And so that's like it's not a proven thing. It's just that was part of the prophecy, and then the speculation. I think there's a little bit more that it's like something to do with like the one that's close to you. So it implies Jaime, and there's like this fan theory that I really like that Arya takes the face of Jaime and then kills Cersei with it.
Oof, that'd be great.
So therefore, fulfilling the prophecy of, like, you know, of how Cersei dies. So that'd be kind of interesting because right now Arya doesn't have a ton of like end game. Like you can't assassinate the Night Watch or the Night's King, you know, like, so she has to do something else, and I think her end game is going to be knocking Cersei off the throne.
I don't know. I think even from this episode alone, she now has 2 Valyrian steel weapons that she's probably.
No, she doesn't.
Oh, it's only 1. Sorry, she just has 1 now.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting Needle's not Valyrian steel, but whatever. So she actually has a Valyrian steel sort of blade, and I think, and we talked about this, like we recount where these Valyrian steel weapons are. Arguably, they're with a lot of these great warriors or great fighters somehow, and they're going to become an importance. They have to, because besides that, in the Dragonglass and fire, like those are the only 3 things that can kill these White Walkers. So I think she's gonna be, because now I thought for sure because she always had Valyrian steel, but I was like, crap, I was wrong. Now she does have Valyrian steel, so that's what says I think she's gonna be a part of that battle.
Yeah, one interesting thing about the dagger, though, is I think it's fitting that she ends up with it because it has no name.
You're good. You are good. You are good. Anything else in Winterfell? Let's chat about King's Landing and what's happened at King's Landing, and then lastly, we're actually going to talk about this most recent episode with what's happening with Jaime too. So we have those a couple different points, but so let's talk to me about all the stuff that's been happening with King's Landing and Cersei and Qyburn and just everything that's happening there. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, Cersei's been her usual evil self. They've done an interesting job of kind of still making that the hub that everyone goes through, even though a lot of our more interesting characters are elsewhere. The whole thing with like Euron buzzing in and out, which I don't know, I've kind of like warmed up a little on him. He's so much different in the books, but I think that one crazy look that when he was raiding the Dornish, envoy, and he was absolutely mad in the face. It was like, all right, well, they shouldn't have called him Euron, and they should have just gave him a new name. And that, like, and this is the case that they should have done a wink and a nod, like, yeah, he's one of the brothers. He's one of the Theon's uncle, and just made him some crazy pirate instead of Euron. I think that would have pissed off a lot of less people. I came around to him that scene though because he was killing sand snakes, and they're terrible characters that are poorly written and serve no purpose to the story. So anyone that can kill the Dornish, no one else can see this because this is not a video, but I just give a big old thumbs up, big old thumbs up,
aggressive thumbs up.
Yeah.
I like how they killed the woman with the whip, and they killed the other woman. What was her weapon? Was it a sword? Spear with a spear. And I was like,
one of those was Colleen Wing, which I thought was hilarious.
Huh.
You would have thought that
the one with the whip is Colleen Wing.
Yeah, you would have thought Sir Loras would have shown up and whoop some butt.
But he's burnt alive. So
he's also the Iron Fist.
Yeah, his fist is burning.
I am Jaime Rand, the Iron Fist, sworn enemy of the hands. Oh wait, can you tell me that again?
Anyways.
Honestly, his title was said. I wonder who said it more, his title or Daenerys's, and I wonder which one takes longer.
Oh, that's a good point.
Like everything. Yeah, I was gonna say protect it. Which was a great line. Oh, segue, non sequitur right here. A great line for when Jon Snow met Daenerys, and she had that 19-page long title that you just kind of like, when you're reading the books, you just look for wherever the next paragraph is and be like, nah, I'm starting there now. And then Davos and all his whimsical is just like, nah, this is Jon Snow. Oh yeah, he's king of the north.
I love Davos.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely I think he's one of the few like better in the show characters than in the books. He has a lot. I think the actor's name is Liam Cunningham. Has a lot more charisma in the role than what is presented in the books.
Absolutely, yeah.
Bradley,
Euron is such a problem for me, and it's not that they deviate from his character in the books as much. I mean, it would be cool to see, like, since his boat is named Silence, how all his crew is supposed to have no tongues. That'd have been really neat to see. I think of like, what are the Greyjoys supposed to stand for? And this character doesn't act like what I feel like an Ironborn should act. I think they should be ruthless pirates. I think they should see like an invitation from King's Landing to come into Blackwater Bay as an opportunity to actually loot and pillage and plunder. And they don't do that at all. They're like, let's hear this person out, type of thing. And he acts like, I mean, he seems to be a character of just conveniently just there to fuck up whatever Daenerys is trying to do. And I mean, he is conveniently like around where we're like around the Horn where where they are sailing to Dorne. Hey, magically Euron pops up and takes the Greyjoys, takes Yara and kills the Sand Snakes and takes Illyria. And then, like, the Unsullied sailed to Castle Rock. Hey, surprise! Euron's here to actually burn all your ships down. that coming. That was big. It happened. It teleported too because it happened like less than like an hour for all that to happen.
Well, so Brandon touched on, like, that was the big thing that I took offense, that he kind of was just an excuse to move the plot forward. Like I talked about before, where Jon Snow didn't really have to talk about anything. He basically just had to wait for Euron to foil their plans again. In the books, I will say this, that his character was exiled early, and so he's not your typical Ironborn, and that's why he doesn't behave like one. He's a very worldly, traveled person. He doesn't raid in Westeros. He raided across the sea in Essos. And so he has a lot of different perspectives on how things go rather than just strictly like the Ironborn way. I expect him to
be more like Salladhor Saan as a pirate.
Yeah.
But probably more vicious.
But he doesn't, like, I think he's the one that doesn't necessarily, is it him or Victarion that doesn't worship the drowned god?
Victarion is with a red priest, so it's Victarion that has the burned arm.
Yeah, okay, cool. I got him mixed up. I was gonna say I knew one of them didn't even worship the gods of the Greyjoys.
Yeah, and I think Euron's all about the drowned god.
Yeah, he is.
Cool. All right. So other than that, I mean, I was interested in the only other stuff that's happening in King's Landing. We have one of the members of the Iron Banks there asking for his money back. We also have the fact that, you know, Jaime or Cersei just doesn't give a shit if people know that her and Jaime are sleeping together. So this is clearly like her world and people are just living in it. She was also working with Qyburn so that they can actually create a weapon that what we're going to bring up in this next segment of here, where we're going to talk about, you know, what's going on with Jaime Lannister in this battle, which was crazy. But yeah, I don't think too much else is happening in King's Landing there. So yeah, it's cool. Okay, so then lastly, let's chat about Jaime. And let's chat about Jaime in the context of this particular kind of episode and just all the all the things that he's necessarily going through. Because I feel like he probably has it the worst right now. Brylan, chat with me.
Jaime's very conflicted right now. Like, he loves his sister to death and he will do anything for her. But he's also kind of worried about, like, how crazy is she going to get? Is she just going to tear down the Lannister tradition completely in order to get things to maintain the Iron Throne and rule over Westeros? Or is he going to be able to talk some sense into her? And I feel like he kind of just has no direction right now. And he's just kind of following the lead of what she wants to do. But it still shows that he's a master tactician. He's a master swordsman, even with one arm. That his maneuver of pulling the Lannisters into Highgarden with the Tarleys and negotiating that deal with the Tarleys to take them over, you see the full might of the Lannisters and how impressive that army is. So that's definitely telling that it will take a lot to take them down. And they're not going out without a fight. And It's I think that Cersei's craziness is kind of like affecting him a bit as well. I think the whole scene where he has a chance to kill Daenerys and runs just head on with a spear, because he's probably thinking like, how the fuck am I going to kill this dragon or kill her?
Yeah.
Might as well try this. He just looks for the closest weapon and goes for it.
To be fair, though, I was saying this while the episode was going. All it took was one idiot foot soldier with a bow and arrow, and there goes Daenerys. Like, once she gets off the dragon, it is game on. And that dragon can protect against Jaime Lannister, who's charging headlong with the spear. No way that dragon reacts in time to stop a speeding arrow.
Yeah.
The other thing is, one thing that I've been a little bit, because the first couple seasons, I thought that Jaime was the most interesting character on the show. That he was going through this transformation, that he got captured, he had to rethink how his society works. He interacted with a lot of interesting characters. So they kind of left him in limbo for the last couple seasons, where he knows his sister is crazy, and he knows that he's probably going to have to step in at some point, but he keeps on going back to her. And they don't really show they don't show enough of his thought process on why he keeps on going back to her, because we know that it's not straight up just unconditional love, because he has the thoughts and he's willing to admit that she's absolutely crazy. And in the first couple seasons, he was a little bit more unconditional about it, where he wouldn't necessarily admit that she was that mad. I don't know. They're leaving him in limbo, and that last episode was amazing, showing him interacting with crazy characters in different places that don't include Dorne. And I think that we're in for that again, because obviously he's going to get saved. He's drowning, but he's going to get saved. And I think that he's going to get held hostage. I mean, one of them is going to figure out who he is, because Tyrion's right on scene and say, hey, this one don't burn alive. Let's keep him. Let's see what we can do for him. And so this is what Jaime's best at. Jaime's best at interacting with people that he shouldn't be interacting with. And we'll see if we can get back to that early form.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting. I'm interested of seeing Jaime and Tyrion talk again, because that's going to happen, and just if they're going to stay in King's Landing or in that area, or if they're going to go back to Dragonstone, regroup, or what's going to happen there. That's going to be kind of interesting. I would assume that they go back to Dragonstone, because that's also weird, the fact that now Jon Snow is on Dragonstone, by himself, sort of thing. I've always liked Jaime, because even kind of going through it and kind of comparing him from the books to what's happening here, and then just seeing I think he has one of the best / sort of worst character in kind of story arcs, and the reason why it's worse is because he's been plagued for it. He saved the entire kingdom for killing the king, but everybody always calls him Kingslayer and calls that he's a betrayer of it. So he's always been plagued for saving the world, sort of thing, or saving this society. So I thought that was just a poetic thing to be the character of, because then I guess when we meet him, he had I don't give a shit sort of thing, but then he got humbled a lot, and now I feel like he's way more torn. And even with the conversation that he had with Lady Olenna, the fact that he's starting to slowly see that things aren't what they seem that they are, and he knows that Cersei's crazy now. And I think that even for this scenario even for this season, now he doesn't have any kids anymore, because majority of it because of Cersei's actions. A lot of it has been because of her actions, or results of her actions. So I think that's really interesting, and just this up and down sort of roller coaster he's kind of going with, and he's still trying to be this person. I think he's still trying to be this name, but I don't think he really believes that he's going to be that. I think something like this defeat on this battle here, is probably going to change him again, and he's probably going to switch up and do. I think he's going to do things a little bit differently, because I thought it was also very impactful when he's talking to Dickon, not Rickon, when he's talking to Dickon, right? And he asks, how do you think how do you think about the world the war? He's like, oh yeah, blah blah blah. He's like, well, your father's not here, and one of the first things he's like, it's tough because, when I was growing up, Dickon saying that Tarly's in the House Tyrell, like that was like our bond, like that. I grew up with these people that I hunted with these people that I just killed, and I think these things are affecting Jamie slowly, for sure. Like they are definitely kind of changing him, because I think he's probably going to end up quitting the King's Guard. Or I have a bunch of different theories about that, but he still ends up being like, besides him and Bran is going down the dark path that I cannot follow. Yeah, that was a Star Wars reference. It's kind of tough just to think that I don't know if Bran's going to be able to kind of come back unless he's not going to do that stuff, but Jamie for sure. In that theory, or the sort of prophecy of if he's going to kill Cersei or not, or how that's going to happen, I think he's going to kill the Mad Queen, like he killed the Mad King, and somehow has to die from that. So that'll be interesting. But yeah.
One of the things that's most interesting about Jamie and Cersei's conversations is every single conversation they've had, he is second guessing her every single step of the way. So yeah, he knows that her choices are the wrong one, because they're all made out of let's scare the shit out of people, let's make them fear us or love us through fear, instead of trying to win over the hearts of the common folk. And one thing I just picture every time they finish a conversation, even though she always seems to get the upper hand, I see him like slowly just like kind of creeping back and going, okay, whatever you say. And I'm waiting for that point where he just says enough is enough.
Yeah.
Well, I think we might get that sooner rather than later. Warren, you raised a good point that I kind of even forgot about, is that he's going to meet Tyrion, which I said 4 minutes ago. But what I forgot is that he now knows that Tyrion is innocent from what he originally kicked him out for. And so he's going to very, very quickly face the ramifications of his earlier actions. And I don't know, we might see him change hands. That's, I guess, a pun. So to speak, if Tyrion can have words with them, and what that does to the Lannister army after that, kind of be interesting.
That's going to be a very powerful scene. Let's say, for instance, if Daenerys does capture Jamie, because she even said a line in this episode of, "Are you being soft on your our enemies? You mean your family? You're being soft on your family." I know that everybody's going to want to execute him. And it's going to be kind of a similar scenario of what Robb Stark was dealing with. Of, should we execute him? We have him as a captor. If he gets rescued and get captured and stuff like that. So I'm super interested of how that's going to play out. If they're going to kill him, if they're going to capture him, like slowly but surely, what's going to necessarily going to happen there. But I like Jamie. I think that's gonna be an interesting thing, and just seeing him and freaking Tyrion on screen together, I think that's gonna be a pretty cool scene.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk about this battle sequence, guys. Did you know that this was coming? Did you have any idea or any inclination what was gonna happen here?
Yes.
No.
How, Mike? Tell me.
Did you read
two things? One thing, I watched the trailer, and so it showed the dragon above the Lannister army. Or the way they cut it was they showed the scene where the dragon was above the Dothraki, and then it didn't take too much to figure it out. They also, as soon as they said she's gone, my mind was like, here we go. and then you cut to the poor, hapless face of, Bronn and Jamie. And as soon, we figured out, because earlier they were talking about how they needed to siege King's Landing. And then as soon as they're like, yeah, we got all the gold in King's Landing, but all our hay is left outside. I was like, well, she's not attacking the army. She's just crushing their grain so she can make the siege easier later on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I knew that was going to come up, and I was pleasantly still surprised.
Yeah, it was great to see Braun again. I miss that dude. If I want a goofy character in Westeros, it's Braun. But it's also like just seeing him as a skilled combatant. He's the first one to like kind of hear, hey, something's not right here. This sounds like thunder's coming. But I just like the reactions of all the soldiers that you see in the scenes. Like when they see the Dothraki and they start to hear their hollering and everything, they're just like, oh, this is pretty fucking serious. Everybody get your spears.
Yeah.
They just start lining up. And then they start, and then they see the dragon, they're just like, oh shit. And then they see what the dragon does, and they're just like, we're fucked.
Yeah. That scene.
I'll say the Lannisters did a better job than I thought. They had one, the dragon had that initial burn through, and the wall held, everywhere else, which I was surprised by. That was a losing fight if I've ever seen one. Once the dragon burned through that one side, I can't believe they held up everything else.
Yeah, I was, so of course, I'm not going to mention this, but I completely taken aback in, it was hitting me in waves because it started at the footsteps, and Braun's like looking at them, and I was like, oh shit, something's about to go down. And it took a little bit, and I was like, "Oh, maybe that's not gonna happen." And then you start seeing them coming up on the over the hill. And I was like, "Oh, shit's about to go down." I didn't know we were gonna get a battle scene. I'm now freaking out. So like my heart's pumping. I was like, "Okay, this is gonna be awesome." But it should be a different battle scene. I don't know exactly what's happening. Maybe they're gonna seal the gold. Maybe they're not. But then there's a line that said the gold was delivered. So I was like, "All right, well, we're gonna have a battle scene. That's gonna be pretty cool." And then I was excited to see that she was on this dragon, and I also got the same thing, Mike. I was like, "Oh, she's gone, so maybe she's like, riding the dragon for sure. She's riding Drogon into it." And I think one of the best things that I enjoyed was after that since this sounds kind of dark, but after the dragon burned those people alive, like their bones and stuff would just turn into ash. How hot the fire was, and they had a couple of shots of people just like burning and like their skin's kind of melting off and all this sorts of stuff. And I was like, they are really dialing up this fire sequence. But this, I think
one of the coolest scenes was like there was a part where Drogon like burned a line of Lannisters and the wind came by and just blew him as dust right behind Jaime.
Yes.
It was so fucking crazy.
I love, that was a scene I was like, oh, I love that part. And this entire battle was just kind of crazy. Even when Bronn goes against one of the Dothraki horde, and you see the Dothraki go up and chop the leg off the horse. Oof. Come on. I was absolutely kind of blown away, absolutely stunned.
I will have to say this, I kind of wish they established basically the Blood Riders a little bit better, just so we'd have a little bit more of a personal stake in that fight. It wasn't hard to figure out who they were and why they mattered, but it would have been nice to have them have a couple speaking roles before. They would have felt more involved.
Yeah,
was the one with the double Arrax, was that like Jaqen or I forget his name, is Jokin?
Yeah, I forget. It's been a while since I read the book. I don't remember their names. They're not the original guys. They're not Khal Drogo guys. So that's probably why they didn't introduce them. But it would have been nice to see, because they do play a very big part in the books.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to have the stakes a little bit higher for that, because we know who Bronn is, and if Bronn dies, we're gonna feel something. But if Bronn kills this other no-name dude, it's like, oh, okay. I mean, he killed him a cool way. Like, he killed him from the spear. What was the name of that thing again?
Scorpion.
Scorpion, yeah. I was going to call it a scyther. I was like, that's not a scyther. But yeah, so he killed him with the scorpion. So I think that was a pretty interesting moment to see like the power of that. But I was actually really surprised that Jaime didn't like flee and run away at all in the battle. He kind of still held his own and was still necessarily trying to fight, although he's trying to fight a losing battle for sure. And Drogon got hit with the scorpion, and he got that. So we know that they're effective against dragons. So I'm interested to see how Qyburn's going to necessarily kind of ramp that up.
We know that they're effective against dragons, but I don't necessarily know if King's Landing knows that. because if no one got out of that battle alive and they had a scorpion, and say word gets back that there was a dragon attack, and then they're like, well, why didn't the scorpion take it down? I think that battle might actually work against the Lannisters and might potentially make them rethink their strategy.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I'm wondering what else could take out a dragon, though, if it's not, a scorpion. I don't know. Any other comments about the battle, guys?
It was cool to see Randall Tarley on fire. That was pretty cool.
Oh, I missed that. He was on fire?
Yes.
Yeah, I missed that too. That's pretty cool.
Oh, crap. I got to go back. That's sad. I'm kind of sad about that now. Oh.
He had it coming.
Yeah. For sure. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. It was just cool to see Dany take a risk and she her own losses. Some Dothraki died as well, but Drogon getting wounded. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. Hey, is she going to hold back on her dragons, or is she going to bring Viserion and Rhaegal into it next time as well? Are we going to see one of them perish? I mean, that's the thing that's in my mind. I think that's the thing on a lot of people's minds. Once you commit these animals to war, then they're going to be vulnerable in certain ways because they are mortal creatures. They're not impervious or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Even though seeing all those arrows bounce off Drogon's chest was pretty badass.
I'm looking at the dragons being alive, kind of like the direwolves being alive at this point. Because if there is a Targaryen alive, there's going to be an equal amount of Targaryens alive that there is going to be an equal amount of dragons. And because there's only 2 Targaryens that we know of, I think one of the dragons is going to die. How? I'm not sure. But
I'll give you another popular fan theory is that Tyrion's actually a Targaryen as well. Which it almost seems like that's it was a dream cop-out that movies take. It would make sense that the whole, he's not really my son type thing.
Yeah.
Where Joanna Lannister got impregnated by a Targaryen, which might be why Tywin revolted.
That's also why she died during childbirth, which is another thing of if non-Targaryen births a Targaryen, that they're going to die in childbirth. And I know that the description of Tyrion in the book, 2 different eye color, and I think he had silver hair or something like that, was vastly different what they did him in the show. I think we actually talked about that. We probably talked about it in person, but that was another huge theory that I had too. That would be cool to have 3 dragon riders being Jon Snow, Daenerys, and Tyrion. It could still happen. It'd be cool. I think one of the dragons has to die though, just to show them the stakes sort of thing. And I think it's also going to be she's losing her babies. She's losing part of herself, and that's like you were talking about, Bradley. Here, it's just war happens and people get lost in war too. And I think there's going to be a lot of other key characters that's going to die by the end of this war for sure. But how they're going to die, how that's going to happen, that's going to be interesting.
One thing I wasn't quite sure of: did they melt the carriage that had the gold in it?
No, that delivered. I think
that got delivered.
Yeah, Randall Tarley ran up right before the scene was like, "Oh, it got delivered." I was like, "Fuck." All right, whatever.
All right.
Yeah, but the grain is in the long term going to be more important because you can't get once the siege starts, it's all just whatever is. Because Winterfell's doing the same thing right now, which I thought was an interesting commonality. Is that they're both preparing for siege, and one of them is getting a heck of a head start because their enemy can't do what Daenerys did.
I think it's pretty cool to see that they give Bronn a moment of he's not just about gold, and because earlier in the episode that he talked about, cool, you paid me, but where's my castle, sort of thing. And so you see the scene of he gets knocked off his horse. He looked at the gold bag and decided to go and fight to try to win the battle instead of going back for his gold. So they're definitely kind of giving him a little bit more to do, which is nice because I think this is the first episode that he's talked this entire season. Yeah, right. We didn't say yeah. So that's cool. I'm glad that they're giving him more stuff to do because I think he's definitely became a fan favorite. It's going to be interesting to see if he's gonna die or not.
If Bronn and Tyrion reunite, that's gonna be some bad blood right there.
Yeah, Really though? I don't know.
That-ish. I mean, he asked him to be his champion against the Mountain, and Braun was like, "You can't afford me," and just turned his back on him. So he did a dick move to him.
Fair. Yeah.
Is he going to hold that grudge?
That was a good point. Yeah. Cool. All right, lasting thoughts about the episode. Anything else you guys want to chat about? I know, Bradley, you had a couple of comments just about like this entire series, like this season, because it's a little bit shorter, how it's a little bit different. Let's talk about that stuff.
Yeah, first off, my last comment about the battle is like, it's good to see Jamie is still a competent fighter, even though he doesn't have his dominant sword hand. So good to see he can still hold his own. But yeah, as far as the season, this could be just a symptom of their. I think this has been a symptom of just how they're just trying to finish up the story, but the pacing feels way rushed for a lot of what's going on. And I think that kind of makes them have to rely on creating a character like Euron Greyjoy just to make shit happen in the story. And that's why I have so much animosity towards that character, because we briefly saw him last season. He killed his brother, took the Iron Crown, and promised 1,000 ships on an island that has no trees. But it does throw you off a bit. It's kind of disjointed, their storytelling compared to previous season. So it's definitely taken a notch down when it comes to how they're pacing out the different stories. But it's good to see everything being a big convergence happening. I mean, you have Jon and Daenerys together finally. You may have Jaime, Tyrion, Jon, and Daenerys all in the same place soon. Even Bronn. Like, that's some of the major characters that have been Game of Thrones. You got the Starks in Winterfell again. And it's all the surviving Starks. I mean, no one's really lost or anything. Everybody's finding their way back to home when it comes to the Starks. And then the Lannisters are acting like lions. They're finding different ways to survive and fight till the bitter end to hold on to what they think is rightfully theirs.
Cool. Mike, lasting thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the show was completely saved by the last scene from last episode, and then this whole episode. It was, like Brylon said, the pacing was very weird. It was like kind of too slow in the Old Town parts, but kind of too fast of like people just showing up. And yeah, it's like, oh, I'm going to leave Winterfell. Boom, in Dragonstone. Oh, the other thing, I forgot to point this out. Dragonstone is at the mouth of the Blackwater Bay. So that means that like Euron would have sailed directly past the other Greyjoy fleet to get into King's Landing. So that one made sense. Fleet. Yeah, exactly. Like that one, they pretty much can wave to each other from those two. So that one was a little bit suspect, and they definitely didn't, like, tactfully did not say that in the TV show that they were that close to each other. But
you had 3 dragons just chilling in Blackwater at the mouth.
Right. It's like everyone in King's Landing would see them cruising over the ocean. So yeah, the pacing was definitely a little goofy. I think that this episode really, really saved that season from being just like a good whatever. I'm gonna watch it because I'm watching it to like, oh my god, we're seeing dragons fight. It was definitely so much fan payoff there.
For sure. I think some of even for this episode and just the entire season alone, like I obviously I think we all enjoyed the season. I think I also like it when, like, I like appreciating and enjoying the dialogue that comes with it, and how like some of these lines that they're said, they're also coming back. Like you talk about the chaos as a ladder and the brand stuff, and like how did that give me that action in just the dialogue and the acting alone besides the battle, because the battles are going to be good. Doesn't matter like where they're going to happen; those are going to be solid, but make sure everything else is also just as good as a battle scene. Just would do like a battle with words. And I really enjoy like some of the stuff in the earlier seasons of when Varys and when Littlefinger are talking to each other about the Game of Thrones. They literally are just going back and forth with their words, and that's it's such amazing dialogue that they're having with each other that you just want to watch that. Just two people talking, and just some of the shots that you actually see of they're literally talking on both sides of the actual Iron Throne about it, but neither one of them wants it because they know they're smart enough. As once you get up there, you're probably gonna die. So I'm glad they're at least there's some moments that they're putting some good stuff in there. There's also a lot of moments that they're putting a lot of pause and they're letting their time sink in with the scene. Like they're not rushing that. And we get an example of when Arya goes down to the grave to look at Ned Stark's grave. And they took the time with not rushing, going through and talking a lot. Like Arya has changed as a person, Sansa has changed as a person. They note that they both have changed, but it's probably not quite yet to get into all the details of it. They just have to then appreciate each other's being and company first. Like you're alive, and I'm glad that you're alive. But last time we saw them they're always at each other's throats. So that's still not a thing that changed. So I like that they gave the time for that. Like they didn't rush that through. And those are the moments that I think are really gonna what people are gonna say like this is good. This is a good season. It's not a good season. And that's gonna be pretty good. Like, even for last season, the Battle of the Bastards, that was awesome. But there's a lot of moments, even when Jon and Sansa was planning that battle of Winterfell, that was also a pretty cool moment of what's gonna happen there. I just like the actual language and the dialogue there. It's cool. So I'm excited. You're excited. I'm excited.
Yeah.
We're all excited to chat about more of this stuff. I'm excited to chat more about Brylan, where can I find more of your work?
You can find me on Twitter at Bryland, BRILUND, sending out Raven messages that say send nudes. And you can also read my mini movie reviews on my Instagram account, I am Bryland.
Send nudes. Really? It took you 3 days for that? Mike the Shredder, where can you find more of your work? And I also hear that you got a show coming up.
Yeah, we're playing at some place down in Union Square in the Cambridge area.
That's
any y'all.
That's Somerville area. But,
yeah, whatever. It's all the same thing to me. It's only lived here my entire life. We're jamming out. You can find us at My News Music or My News Band on most major platforms. Unlike Mr. Mocha, there's no one else in the world with Maya News. Just watch out. If you misspell it, you get a bunch of butts.
A bunch of butts.
A whole bunch of butts. But yeah, we're doing some stuff. We posted our first Facebook Live video, which I'm waiting for it to get deleted because my buddy didn't believe me and just took his butt out. And just mooned the camera, so that's gonna get copyright claim, or not copyright. That's gonna get parental claimed in a minute. But
Facebook black bar on it.
Yeah. Maybe it's just Zuckerberg. No, it's just Tom's face.
Oh,
my face, Tom.
That'll be the biggest troll.
Yeah, that would be great. But yeah, we're moving on up. We're almost at 60 followers on Facebook. It's pretty crazy.
You're moving on up on the east side of Berlin and the part of the sky. Anywho, I want to say thank you so much. I am Warren, and what I would say is we love to do this. We love enjoying and talk about things from time to time, and we're excited to talk about some of our next reviews and some things that are actually getting some pretty good reviews so far at the box office there. We are Down in Front Podcast. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have a bunch of stuff. We have a patreon.com/Down in Front Podcast that for a small portion, it's Arizona iced tea, a sweet tea version of the Arizona iced tea. The price is on the can, 99 cents. small donation. What we necessarily do from that, we use those funds to do podcast hostings as well as watch movies, kind of introduce guests, do a bunch of interviews. We're just doing a bunch of different tools for that. Any and every donation will be helpful. Even kind of quick shout out or kind of hopping on Skype just to hang out with us, that would be great. So it's patreon.com/downinfront. You'll see a couple of buttons you can subscribe for $1 a month, so feel free. It's always awesome and super helpful. We're on Twitter, so it's going to be @_DIFP. That stands for @_Down in Front Podcast, where you see a bunch of different tweets. We actually talk about some of our next reviews that's coming up, and sometimes we just say how much we love Charlie Hunnam. So you'll also see those tweets there, so feel free for that. And we have our Facebook and we have our email. Our email is going to be downinfrontpodcast@gmail.com, and our Facebook is facebook.com/DAFP. That stands for facebook.com/downinfrontpodcast, where you see a bunch of information and all the things that we want to necessarily do. So with that, we will say thank you so much. We're glad you enjoyed Game of Thrones mid-season recap, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Goodbye. Why are we all waving?
I'm waving for the mic.
Just said bye. Just said bye.